There we go. Hello, hello. Welcome to our impromptu live session today. I was having all sorts of issues getting our YouTube to go up, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop stressing about it, and instead, I'm going to do a live today. And so here we go. So I'm just going to, if you are coming in live, then go ahead and leave me a comment. Let me know that you're here. It's always lovely to talk with people um, as opposed to just like at and in the air. It's to be a little bit more raw and a little more real. Let's see here. And then we'll see if we can get the comments to work, because that's my constant issue. Something went wrong. Update. Let's see if we can make that go. All right. Here we go. All right. Hello, everybody. So a little bit later than our normal Facebook Lives, I know, and for those of you that are jumping on through YouTube or going to watch the recording, so if you are part of our Facebook community, the Awaken Circle, this is going to be put up onto our YouTube as well, so that we have access to it, because Facebook now deletes Facebook Lives within 30 days. And so this just allows us to keep having that content and information there whenever you want. So that is what we will be doing. So you can find those on Practical Spiritualism under the Awaken Circle playlist, and they will be there based on last played, or last posted. So you can find everything there. So today I want us to chat about insecurity. So I think I chatted about this a bit back in the end of August when I was really working through a ton of insecurity stuff. So if you're not watched one of these before, one of the things that I do every single morning, and I started doing it while I was in Greece, is I started doing a brain dump every morning. So when I get up in the morning, I make my protein coffee and I sit down at my table and I start brain dumping. And I brain dump anything that is on my mind. So it might just be, here's the things that are coming up today, things I've got going on. It might be any negative chatter, anxiety, anxious things, worries, concerns. I dump all of it onto the paper and get it out of my head. So rather than letting it loop, it just empties it all out, and then we can begin. And what normally happens is I give myself 10 minutes, and by the time I hit the end of the page, I've started, having solutions for the problems that come up. The other thing I started to do is at the bottom of my brain dump is I started to ask for guidance and clarity. And so I think my brain dump often is a note that I'm, conversation between myself and my soul. And so, what do I need to let go of today? What is obscuring my light? What is in my way? And so what do I need to be aware of, and what do I need to get rid of? So as I started doing this, all of a sudden I started having a ton of insecurity stuff come up and be triggered. Insecurities with friendships, insecurities with loyalty, all sorts of things, insecurities with my body. I talked about that a bit with you guys about going through like having this realization of like, oh yeah, no, I have like full out body dysmorphia. And so needing to deal with these. And so I want to talk about this, and especially in this particular way, because the thing is when we start moving through this and we start asking to be triggered, or maybe you're not asking but you just are, because your subconscious is like, enough of this. I am purposely bumping into things, getting you to bump into things so that you will deal with it. And that's what happens to us. And so here is the opportunity to go through it. And it's not always like an awesome experience. A lot of times we're like, I don't love this. I don't want to go through this anymore. And so this is tough. But when we do it with intention, or we become aware of it, it's an opportunity for us to let something go. And it's the letting go of things that is really the healing journey. It is the unlearning journey. It is the journey of getting what we really, really deeply desire, which is a sense of peace, a sense of joy, of wonder, of awe. And so we can get those things. They are totally attainable. It's just the things that are in our way need to get out of our way. And so, this came up. So it has been a heck of a journey moving through insecurity. And I would not say that it's done yet. But I realized this morning while I was thinking about it that it is something I wanted to share with you guys about how I get through these things as I do them, because there's a lot to it. And it's not a little, like, it's not like we just do it once and then it's gone, because it's often layered. And so as I was moving through insecurity, one of the things I realized was that there's these deeper beliefs that come in, most from before the age of 8. And one of the ones that I had that I worked on right before I left for New York was that I'm an inconvenience. And this belief is so deeply ingrained that I don't invite people to events. I don't tell people about things that are going on in my world, because I don't want to inconvenience them by asking them to support me or to share it with me. And I mean, that can be a birthday, it can be something big that I'm doing in my life, and I just don't share. When I got in the accidents and had the head injury, I actually never told anybody directly. I didn't tell any of my family. I didn't even call my best friend. So because I didn't, want to be a whiner, and I didn't want to burden anybody, and I didn't want to inconvenience them about having to worry about me. And so this comes from an old childhood wound. And I didn't realize how deeply it was ingrained in there. So I had lots of tears going over it with one of my coaches, my energy workers, and we were like really going into it, and it was shocking to realize that, the big event that I really nailed it in was about 7 years old, being in grade 2, in the back field of Quadra Elementary in Victoria, and the class being separated into 2 groups. And so there's 2 captains, and they're going to pick teams. Most of us have either experienced this or we've witnessed it happen. And both captains pick everybody, and I'm the last person. And I'm standing beside the teacher, and they are arguing over who has to take me. And in all fairness, I was an awkward kid that, was just awkward. And I wasn't, athletic, and I was just awkward. And so, in every way. And so, going into the innocence of children, I can see where it comes from. Being the one going through it, horrific. But what nailed it was when I remember turning and looking at my teacher, and her looking so exasperated with having to deal with this problem again. And so that becomes the big anchoring wound. But what comes up with that is every single time later, asking any teacher for anything, or a parent or a friend or a boss, and there's that look of like they're tired, they have a lot on their plate. I would take that I was being an inconvenience. And so deeply embedded in is this belief that I'm an inconvenience. And I realized that it was there. I made a comment about it. As soon as I made the comment, I immediately texted my coach, and I was like, we got a problem. This is what we need to work on next. And so we started making this the next piece. And I realized heading into New York that it was going to be imperative that I release a whole bunch of stuff around insecurity, because all of a sudden I was going to be in Times Square on a billboard. I'm going to need to be able to ask for what I need for like book covers being designed, for my billboard being designed. I was on a TV show while I was in New York. So, having to let go of all of like these insecurities about my body, about how I'm going to look, about sounding stupid, about inconveniencing people, like it all had to come up, and it had to come up so I could do what I needed to do. And, this has really been a huge place. And so I want to start with that's where it's come up for me, and where I've been bringing it up for myself. It's being triggered like crazy with friends over the last, and even work over the last, 4 months, I'd probably say. Just little things like you're supposed to be going into a meeting with a bunch of people, and they all go into the room and they close the door, and they don't tell you they're heading into the meeting. And for the most part, I'm usually busy, and I'm like, oh, they've headed in. Okay, I'll go in there in a minute. But when I'm already triggered, all of a sudden I'm almost in tears, because, obviously I'm not as important as other people. And so I was like, whoa, this is incredible how this stuff shows up. And even though we know it and we're going through these things, we have this thing that holds us back, where we like grip in because it keeps us protected. And so, oddly enough, it was perfect. Today I was working with some clients, and we hit this moment where I said, "Are you ready to let this go?" And they said, "I don't know." And I said, "Okay, perfect. Let's talk about this." And so the need of, or the fear of letting it go because it was protecting them. And as crazy as it seems, often with our subconscious mind holds on to these events because it's protecting us. It's trying to protect us from feeling that heartache, that embarrassment, that shame ever again. And so this is one of the reasons why we hold on to these things and why it can be hard to let them go, because it's gotten confused or distorted that it's something that's now protecting you, even though it's not, because fear cannot protect you. There's scientific studies showing that the two things that we fear as a child is it's falling and we were just talking about it this morning, falling and loud noises. Those are the two things we're naturally afraid of. And so the rest is all learned. And so some of that's good, predator-prey issues, but the rest of it, not so much. And so, insecurities and stuff, we can think that they're protecting us, but they're really not. And what's more important is that we start getting to this place where we have inner security. And that is what I started to notice as I was doing all of this work, because I do everything that I ask you guys to do. I was doing this work around insecurity, and I was like, oh, this is fascinating. The more that I work on this, the more inner security I have. And the thing is we're born with 4 deep desires and needs: safety, security, belonging, and love. And we're either trying to get them or we're trying to keep them. And so if I have these needs, then I'm looking at the outer world to bring them to me. And when we're young, we learn to do that by looking for our parents, our family, to fulfill those needs. And then because our parents also have their own dramas and traumas, we're not taught to get them in ourselves, that those things are within us. And so instead, we leave and we go to school and we look for safety, security, belonging, and love from our, cohorts, from our teachers, from all these outer things. And what we don't do is give it to ourselves. We don't realize that the person that needs to be giving it to us is us. And once we have that inner safety, the inner security, the belonging, and the love, then that's what we project out into this world. And then we can stabilize and support others as they learn how to give it to themselves, because it's not actually us. And often we tie our worth into giving those things to somebody else. And that creates codependent relationships, attachments, or cords, as I would call them, instead of deeply embedded connections, which is way more heart-centered and healthy. And so how this shows up. And so the last time I chatted with you guys before I left, I shared with you about Field and Form. And Field and Form is the 12 laws of co-creation that I've spent the last 12 years really studying science and mysticism and trying to understand. Why do people heal? Why do some people not? What is it? Who are we? What are we supposed to be doing? And trying to understand what is truth. And so after 12 years, I was finally given the message that the studies were over, and it was time to bring the 12 laws that we see threaded all throughout all of science and mysticism and bring them forward into the world. And so I shared those on our last Facebook Live. So I won't go into them too deep today. But I want to talk about it in terms of what I do, because everything I do is using those laws as ways to help me understand what I'm going through, to release them not only for myself, but also how to not take things personally from other people when they're going through things. And so it is using these laws in real time that has been a major contributing factor to my healing journey. And so how it shows up. So I put, how does insecurity show up in Field and Form? So the field being energy. So that is like our inner world or space around us. So that is, the field is energy of emotions, thoughts, beliefs, ideas, not only our own, but those that are out in the world itself, as well as space around us, which is filled with information. And form is anything that was in the results category. So which includes our body, our results of jobs, of all those things. Those would all become forms. So the outcomes that we get. And so field, insecurity lives in the field as a belief. So such as I'm not enough, or I'm an inconvenience. I don't belong, I'll be abandoned. I have to prove my worth. These are all ones that come from me. These are energetic imprints formed mostly before the age of 8. In form, these beliefs manifest as patterns. And so, overworking, people pleasing, jealousy, conflict avoidance, perfectionism. Also, I would put in there, I put attachment anxiety, there it is, and control issues. Because for me, I am a recovering control freak. And so this is part of it, and that not so much the perfectionism, but there's definitely some components of OCD that have come up from trauma responses. And so the loop. So every time we act from insecurity, what we're doing is we're reinforcing the field, and then we recreate the same form over and over again. So as long as we keep in the loop, then we're going to keep recreating similar relationships, because we need to change the field to change the form. So, and that's just science. Everything comes from field first. So field first, if you want to change something in the physical reality, then you need to change it within the energetics. So we need to change our beliefs. We need to change the way that our frequency, so that we can change the form, the energy of the form that we're experiencing. And so the laws tend to be a map for freedom. And in this case, for freedom from insecurity. And I'm going to do them quick because I don't want it to take forever for you guys. But so we have the first law, which is the law of awareness. So consciousness creates reality. So like right from the beginning, thought creates form. And so you can't change what you won't face. And so I had to sit and go through, or didn't have to, but I made the choice that I was going to pull into it and actually look at where these were coming from and deal with them once and for all. And so awareness is the first disruption of the behavioral loop. The practice is catching in micro moments. And so like situations where I was purposely antagonizing myself, and suddenly I was at work and I had this issue, the way that we catch it in micro moments. And so it said, I just said yes because I was afraid they'd leave. But I would even go in to catch the micro moments as in you're starting to become triggered, and for me, I get defensive, and so then I look a little more stern. My energy gets a little more intense, and so in this case, I catch it. I'm aware of it. I made myself calm down before I went into the room. I'm like, this is totally on you. They haven't done anything wrong. I walk in the room. I'm still not at my normal frequency, and they're aware of it. And so when we finish the meeting, I actually made a comment about that I've been going through this situation for the last couple of days, super triggered out, feeling insecure, and I noticed that I was triggered that we had a meeting and nobody said, hey Dom, we're heading in now, and you guys just walked in and closed the door. And they were like, oh. And then I realized that one of the things I always do is I never close the door for a meeting, and I always make sure everybody's called in. And I realized that's a behavior that I do to make sure, because it's what I would want in return. But we don't always get what we do. And so once I made that comment, it was cool, because what happened the next week is all of a sudden they were heading into the meeting. I get a text from one of the managers, and they're like, hey, we're just heading in. When you're done with your client, doors closed, come on in. And it worked beautifully. And so, there's these ways, and it's not that we're trying to work around somebody's wounds. It's that we want to create this sense of community and completion. I laughed because by then I was working through this and I was good again. But in the future, one of those things is making sure that we are really clear that everybody's included in. And in our culture that we want to create here at work, that's important. We all want to feel this way. We all have days that we feel insecure. And so it's just a great habit to get into. So then the second law is the law of frequency or resonance. And so insecurity is a frequency, and it attracts situations that validate it. It also attracts situations so that it bumps into it, brings it to the surface. So one way everybody sees this is this validation. The other side of it, from a spiritual point of view, is that this law is done on purpose. Our soul does this so that we will be triggered, bring it to the surface so that we can deal with it. And so there's two sides to this. If we're not paying attention, it ends up validating it. If we are paying attention, it's an opportunity to work on it and release it. So the law of resonance will always attract things to us that we are in frequency matched to. So raising your internal frequency through self-acceptance, embodiment, truth begins shifting the field. And so working on those relationships, doing what I did, where I'm sitting here going, this has nothing to do with them. This is you feeling already insecure, and right now, like, you're really triggered and traumatized with it. We just need to deal with it. So you need to sit here for a moment and take some deep breaths and not put this on anybody else. And so we take the moment to become aware, and then we can start shifting it. And we talk to them so that they're not unintentionally triggering us, but we have this opportunity to create deeper relationships with each other. And it gives a sense of safety for them as well. Oh, now I know why you were like more intense or distant from us. And I don't like when I feel that way either. So now I'm going to change something and make sure that we have an opportunity to create this different connection. 3 is the law of belief. And so field shapes form. And this is where, which I said right from the beginning, so you see it play out quite a bit. But what you believe about your worth, lovability, and safety shapes every single experience, because our thoughts come from our beliefs. And so these beliefs that are deeply embedded when we're young is what is going to move our thoughts forward. And so when we have this belief, then we're going to think less of ourselves, or we're going to have the insecurity about relationships, and it's going to change the way that we interact with people, the way that we show up in those relationships. And so the practice would be to identify your root insecurity. So I gave you mine, belief, and consciously rewire it. I said identify your root insecurity belief and then consciously rewire it. I am inherently worthy of love and belonging. For myself, when I went back into that situation, because I always do a look back at the whole thing. And so I said to somebody yesterday, it's kind of like you put it in a snow globe. And so you put the whole situation in a snow globe, and then you watch it from outside of the snow globe. From outside, I can see these two kids just wanting to win. And I'm kind of the awkward kid, and so it's not going to go well with me. And so I'm considered a hindrance. And from an unattached, non-personal point of view, I can see it's not personal. It feels like it's personal, but it's actually about them wanting to win. It actually has nothing to do with me. When I look at the teacher, I can see her exasperation of, having to deal with these kids. Like, why are you behaving like this? You know better. I'm taking it something different, which is like, why do you have to be here? And I started to look at each event. So then I went back into each event and re-looked at the person's face to see that they were already tired. So I was purposely looking from a different perspective, like knowing what you know now, what else could be going on there? And it's like, oh, well, they could be like really tired or exhausted, or they just need to get shit done. And don't you already know how to do your job? But it has nothing to do with me, because they're already at their peak. And I just happen to be there. And so my lack of trust and faith made it so that I assumed the worst. And that is one of the ways that we can work through this, is by going and looking at it and then consciously rewiring, choosing to see it from a different point of view. And then the law of alignment, inner and outer harmony. Insecurity thrives when you live out of alignment with your values. And so returning to truth and integrity builds self-trust and is the antidote to security. So again, it's about coming back inward. And so how can I do this work in a way, so when I look at my own values, I was like, okay, my values are courage, so the courage to look at it and deal with it. So courage, sovereignty, to no longer be pushed and pulled by my fears, my dramas, my traumas, intuition. And so, making sure that I'm in alignment with my intuition and I'm not ignoring my intuition to be loved or liked or accepted by people. What else do I have in there? I just shifted I shifted loyalty to integrity recently. So that would be, am I in integrity with what I say? So often when we feel insecure is because we say one thing and we mean something else. So making sure that I say what I mean and that I'm in integrity with myself. And so when we go and find our values, and so if you haven't done the values worksheet before, then, go ahead and throw me a note in the thing, just say values, and I will message you the link so that you can download the values worksheet and work through those. Our values are unique to us, and so it takes a while to get through them. It is not a one-day practice. So when we're doing values work, we're trying to find about 5 core root values that are important to us. And what starts off is we pick the values we think we're supposed to have. And so I did this with the value of family. And so I thought I'm supposed to have the value of family. And so, but I realized that that's not actually my value. It's not that I don't value my family. It's not that I don't love them. It's that it's not like a core piece of who I am every single day. I don't have group chats with my kids. I mean, we have them for when we have an event going on, but we don't talk all the time. Same with my own biological family. That's not a thing. So for me, I'm kind of a solo practitioner in all ways. And so, Mike being my one ride or die. And so aside from that, I'm quite independent. I don't have that same value that other people do. It's not that it's not valuable to me, but it's not one of my core. And so when I take a look at those, was this what it should be, or is it what it really is to me? And so noting what your values are is really important, and how they can come through. The other one for me is curiosity. When I'm curious, so in other words, if I'm curious, I'm staying in alignment, and I can ask questions and really want to understand and cultivate that connection with somebody. When I assume an answer, and even from that little girl, I assume an answer, and it puts me into a place of fear, anxiety, panic, worry, all those things. So courage and curiosity really help me stay in alignment. When we get our 5 or so core values, think of them as each of them's a star, and they make their own unique constellation. And the reason that they're unique is because even though we might have the same values, they'll mean slightly different things to us. And so your values are your own unique constellation. And that constellation should always sit ahead of us and above. And so if we're moving, we can look at our values constantly with every single choice and decision we make. And if we're in alignment with our values, then we know we're a go. And if anything is out of alignment with any value, not 4 out of 5, it has to be all of them. And so if we're out of alignment with any of our values, we now know we need to pause and recheck. This isn't exactly right for us. So what do we need to adjust to make sure that we stay in alignment, in attunement with ourselves? So there's where that the law of alignment comes into play. Law of reflection. So the mirror. This is the one where have no expectations, release all judgments, and let go of the need to know why things happen as they do. So triggers are mirrors. They're an opportunity. So when somebody makes us feel not enough, they're showing you where you still reject yourself. So this is done beautifully by, there's an old tale done by, I think, Thich Nhat Hanh, about a boat and a monk. And he's in the lake and he's meditating in a boat. And as he's meditating, another boat bumps into him and he starts getting angry. And as he opens his eyes to give a blast to the boatman, he realized the boat is empty and just drifting in the lake. And so then he realizes that the anger was within him and the boat just bumped it. So the situation is happening, you get bumped, it's your insecurity. I always say to everybody, you're not powerful enough to make me angry. Anger resides within me, and you've bumped it. And so I do that because it's my way of taking accountability for my emotions. And so it's like sometimes not so good. I'm like, you pissed me off. But for the most part, we're trying to make sure that we've got that, because that's going to be the next law, is the law of accountability. And so, where do I reject myself? Where is the anger already there? Where is the insecurity? They're just bumping into insecurity that already exists within you. And so where are you rejecting yourself? And that was what I started coming up against. So the reframe would be, instead of resenting the trigger, use it as the tool for healing. And this is why I ask every day, almost every day. Today I didn't. Every day to be triggered, because then I'm purposely making the decision to release and let go of something. Then 6 is the law of intention, so directed energy. So instead of letting fear run the show, choose an intentional state. I intend to show up with grounded confidence, even if I feel shaky. And so we take that time to really ground into ourselves, to be really present, to be in this moment and not caught in the past. Intention gradually reprograms the field. So I do intention work every single morning. Every single morning, I start with my brain dump and then I do my intentions. And I do my intentions in a future forecast. So I start with, I'm so happy and grateful now that. And then I do about up to 10 intentions. And I keep the exact same intentions for a quarter. And I do 10 intentions of what I want to manifest. And those intentions can be about my spiritual life, about my family. Like right now, I have one where I'm so happy and grateful now that my family is deeply connected and filled with love and joy. And so I want that to be maintained within our family. So I set that intention for it. And so intentions can help us start to shift what we think and how we feel, especially if we do them as a daily practice. And keeping them for the 3 months helps us really cement them in and not just get flighty willy-nilly. We give a chance for things to be brought forward in this world and to actually manifest them. You put it into the field, now give it the opportunity to come into form. And so we start to see that come through. Law 7 is the law of reciprocity. So give to receive. So insecurity often makes us withhold love, vulnerability, authenticity. And when you offer those things first, you expand your capacity to receive them. And so often when we feel insecure, then the first thing that we do is we say, I don't want to show people my vulnerability. This was me. And so a lot of people had no idea that I could even feel fear because I never showed them that, because that would give them something that they could use against me. There's the insight to the inside of my mind. So I didn't show my vulnerabilities. And the thing is when I do show my vulnerability and I share what I've gone through and what I am going through, it often cultivates a deeper connection with other people, and then they feel safe. And so when we actually give, we share these aspects of ourselves in safe relationships. We're not doing it, with a narcissist or a psychopath, but we're giving these vulnerabilities in healthy experiences and healthy environments. Then we can start to rebuild that, and then that also helps feel us supported in the world around us. The law of cycles. So 8 is the law of cycles. Growth in seasons. So healing insecurity. Insecurity is cyclical. We spiral back to deeper layers. That's not failure, it's mastery. Honor the seasons. So trigger, awareness, integration, and then expansion. And we got to go through them individually. That's why I've been spending months and months dealing with this very actively, is because it's not just one thing. There's a whole bunch of things that have supported this, and so going through them. So we want to have get triggered. We have the awareness. We want to get triggered. We want to get triggered, then we want to have the awareness. So we bring it forward. That's why brain dumping and journaling can be really powerful. Integration. So what is this? How can I release this? And then give ourselves some space to integrate, and then let ourselves expand. So moving into the next layer. Then when it comes up, it might be a little less or it might be slightly different, but we're going to be able to handle it because we have a deeper wisdom now. And then the law of polarity. Wholeness contains opposites. Polarity is a doozy. And so strength and vulnerability are not opposites. They coexist. And so often we think as vulnerability is weak, and we forget that actually vulnerability is strength. And so understanding that those are coexisting things is really powerful. When you embrace both, so insecurity dissolves into authenticity. So when we can embrace being vulnerable, then we get the strength to be able to start to embrace our own authenticity, our own truth. And within that truth, when you're authentic, you feel safe for other people to be around. It's the shadows, the things we hide, that make other people feel uncomfortable in our presence. And so what is it that we're hiding that maybe it's time to bring into the light? And then law of coherence. So heart-mind alignment. And so the mind might say, I'm fine, but the heart still fears abandonment. So bringing thoughts, feelings, and actions into coherence builds true safety. And so we want to be able to bring these things. So we have the thought, and then we want to make sure that we've got these feelings, and we're bringing them all into play. And we want to make sure that we're not just doing toxic positivity, which I can't stand. So this is like where we actually start getting into this alignment of like, what are the thoughts I have about myself and where can I start to shift those? And then what is that emotion? So we want to give time for integration. And when I say time, I'm not talking weeks. It could be a day, it could be a moment, but we want to give ourselves space to integrate the information, not just blow through it. Otherwise, we're going to have it show up again because we haven't given space for integration. And then giving that space for ourselves, so saying I'm worth taking some moments for me, is a powerful, powerful thing to cultivate safety, security, belonging, and love within ourselves. And then the law of action, which is embodied choice. So confidence isn't a thought, it's a muscle. And so understanding that it's an action that we take every single time. So we lean into the discomfort of doing something where we're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And we lean in and we give it an opportunity to see the benefits of it. So act as if you're already secure. Now, this isn't fake it till you make it. What I'm saying here is act as if you're already secure. So if I was already secure, I wouldn't, not sign to go on that show. I'm going to sign to go on the show and I'm going to lean into the discomfort and I'm going to do it scared. So I'm moving through and going, no, I have this ability to do this within me, as opposed to just faking, and where we lose trust in ourselves. So I'm always cautious about things like fake it till you make it, because it comes across as not being authentic. And so how can I move through this with a lot of intention, which gives a different resonance to what we're doing? And then the field begins to align with that embodiment. So when we put it in there and we say, okay, I want to work on this, I'm ready to let this go, the field is going to support what it is that we're trying to do. And then the law of creation. So you are the source. So at the deepest level, you were never insecure. You were whole. So, and that's a big one for us to understand. That's not our true nature. And so when we come into this, it's like, oh, I'm just trying to remove the things that are obscuring my truth. And our truth and our pure light, we are pure perfection. We're pure potential. It's beautiful. You are creation. You are God. And it's beautiful. And this is the law that helps us come back to that, to come back to the truth of what's within ourselves. So every belief was learned, and therefore it can be unlearned. So you are the creator of your self-concept. And so this is where our accountability comes in. Was I the one that created that situation with the kids and with the teachers and all the rest? And no, I'm not there. But I am the one that's creating it now when I don't deal with it, when I let it keep coming up over and over again. So there's a lot of power in choice. There's a lot of power when we say, I'm done with this. I want a better way. I want it to be the most beautiful, brilliant version of myself that I can possibly be in this lifetime. That's really how we go through it. So if you have any questions about this, I'd love to hear about them. So anything where it's like, okay, how do I do this? Or maybe it's bringing up something that is an insecurity that you're noticing that's coming up even in this conversation. Let's talk about it. Questions about how we can use these things for anything else, please do not hesitate to ask, because it just gives us some really good context that we can jump into and be real. And so for closing, from insecurity to inner security, the reframe: insecurity isn't a flaw. It's a sacred teacher showing you where your power is leaking. And so when we can understand that, all we need to do is heal the hole. And so we release that item, that insecure, that past, that trauma, that drama that is weakening our own field. The invitation: every trigger is a portal back to truth. Triggers are not bad. They're an opportunity. And then, I put on here, what would I do differently if I trusted my inherent worth? That's the question that I'm giving you. So to journal on, what would I do differently if I trusted my inherent worth? And if you want to do some work on this together, I have actually created an Oracle Guidance 3-pack. So usually I coach never less than, well, now really I do 6 months. Is my minimum of working with me, up to a year as the programs go. However, I created what I call the Aligned Oracle Guidance 3-pack. And so it's where we can really focus on one section of your life. Could be just like, okay, working on this. And we do 3 sessions together working to get some clarity and movement in that area for you. So if that interests you, I put the link in the description so that you can check that out and maybe get some movement that you're looking for. I hope this brought you guys some value today. I look forward to seeing you again soon. I will be back on Thursday for our regular Facebook Live. It is so good to be back home and start getting back into the rhythm of things. Much love to all of you, and I will talk to you again soon.